All right, we still got a few people joining, but we are recording this session, so we will go ahead and get started. First, thank you everyone for joining. Today, we're going to be talking about benefits, open enrollment, and the things you can do from setup to taking advantage of functionality that can help improve the experience. A little bit about Intellius before we get started. We were established in 1999 as a complementary partner. We had a couple of software offerings that got us started that we have carried into CloudSuite. We are a part of the Infor Partner Network, and we have consultants who are certified in both Infor and AWS. So we're able to offer help with cloud migrations, implementations, before you get started with those, doing a system assessment to help you plan for that transition, or even once you're live, those system assessments can be helpful in going back, revisiting your configurations, maybe some shelfware, and helping take you to the next level there. We can also add in individual new modules and help with technical support as well. So maybe you need a new automation or integration built, maybe you need help with some configuration, we can assist with that. Today, we've got Christopher Nola, who's going to be presenting, and he'll take us through the slide deck and then bounce back and forth with some live demonstration. And then at the end, we will go through all of your Q&A. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining. So we'll just jump right in. We're going to go through a little bit of overview and setup because I think it's good for some of you. You haven't maybe really rolled up your sleeves and started to build your open enrollment for this coming year. So we'll go through a little bit of that, put yourself in that headspace. I do want to take a look from a user experience because we'll talk about setup and then see it from the user side as an employee. And then I do want to focus on some beneficiary changes. These took place about a year ago, but and they've had a few enhancements in April. And I do want to dig a little deeper for a lot of people that maybe thought about making those changes to their beneficiary or and maybe not have gotten to it or just haven't taken a look at it in a while. So into the overview and setup. When you set up, it's these four major buckets in this order. So you look at it from enrollment groups, then you address your organizational rules, your enrollment events, and your enrollment rules. I know that's a mouthful there, a lot of events, a lot of rules. Once you spend some time in it, it does have a logic to it, but you do bounce around a bit. So let's just jump in. And the enrollment groups, think of enrollment groups as a basket of a specific benefit plans that are kind of bundled together, if you will. So example that I reflect here, I say, oh, you could have a medical enrollment group. And in that, what are you going to put in that basket? In this case, you know, you could have a PPO, an HMO, a WAVE plan specific to those medical plans. So when the person goes into select into that area, you're going to, you know, attach this group, if you will, into that event. And you will then see those available, and we'll show that in just a second. So again, you create that group first because you have to establish the group, sort of build the basket, if you will, and then you attach those plans, in essence, fill the basket. And so then after that, then they'll be attached to the rules. So here, one thing I wanted to point out that if you set up, when you set up those enrollment groups, you can see the one, there's the maximum plans, in this case, one, which is meaning, hey, we have 3 plans to offer, but you're only allowed to be in one, right? Most times, like on a medical plan, you can't be enrolled in two plans at the same time. It's either the PPO or the HMO or the, you know, so it just depends. So usually if you have a setting, one, that's where you're going to set that up, but also on that required, if you require it, meaning they can't get past it, and you only have 2 health plans, let's say, you want to make sure that you've got that WAVE plan set up, because otherwise you're going to be forcing them to choose plan A or plan B, and maybe in your situation they are allowed not to select either one. They've got their own through their spouse, let's say, and they can waive the plan. But if you don't have that WAVE plan in there, you've really painted them into a corner. And I've seen just some folks set that up and kind of go, what happened? And I'm like, okay, well, either turn off the required or have the required on, but make sure you have that wave plan in there. So again, here's a visual representation of what I was just talking about, that basket, if you will. So you've got these enrollment groups, in this case, a health, it's called, and you can name it anything you want. And then you've then attached or brought in those plans that you want to offer in that enrollment group. And then off to the right, that is actually showing when in each one of these plans, in this case, Medical Plus, you can set for that enrollment what you want to allow. Do you want them to add a plan, allow them to remove the benefit plan? And so there are options that you can select. Remember, you're going to in a few steps, you're going to take that enrollment group and actually attach it to the enrollment rules that are specific to that event. So I have some folks that are that will have, oh, we want they'll actually build an enrollment group that is unique to open enrollment, and a different enrollment group, meaning a bundle of, let's say, health plan or other benefit plans, a disability plan, that may be more specific to a certain life event. And so in order to, if there's something unique there, they may have to set up, even though they seem identical, they may need to set up separate enrollment groups in order to attach them to those enrollment rules, depending on what event they're going to put them on. That next step, so we're now on to the org rules. Now the organizational rules are set at a much higher level. They're at the org level. So you're setting this up once sort of from per organization at that benefit level for all benefits. So on this first area where you come in, there's 3 areas. So you're going to have displays, benefits, and enrollment groups. But in this case, I want to focus on the enrollment, this specific area of whether you use step enrollment, and then also the filter choices by dependents. These were enhancements that were brought about in the last couple of years. Infor has been very heavily recommending to look at step enrollment. I feel that most of their future development is using some assumption that folks are using the step enrollment. So a step enrollment really adds you a higher level of that enhanced user experience. You're going to see more ability to personalize, more links available. It's a more fluid experience. You'll see more icons and sort of visual representations than the classic, I call it, the older experience. So I've seen a lot of folks use step enrollment, move to step enrollment. And then you also have a choice, and this is not an or statement, this is an and statement. You can also not only use step enrollment, but you can also use the filter choices by dependents. I don't see this as often used. That doesn't mean you can't use it, and there's definitely clients that do use it. But filter choices based on dependents is going to then essentially say, you declare your dependents, meaning, do I have a spouse? Do I have children? And depending on what you've selected ahead of time, it's only going to show you those plans when you get to the election area that are based on what you've set up as your dependents. So if you don't have a spouse and you only have yourself and you only have children listed as dependents, when you get to the enrollment, let's say, of a health plan, you're only going to see options like employee, employee plus children. You're not going to see perhaps a family option if you've set it up that way, or an employee plus spouse, because you never had the spouse on as a dependent. So for some folks, that's the functionality behind filter choices based on dependents. It's going to limit that visibility, which for some feel that's better. It's a cleaner experience. It's more customized to what they've set up. Other clients will not select the filter choices based on dependents because it leads them down a path of, well, why can't I see that option, employee plus spouse? And then they have to back up and recognize they have to go back and set up their dependent correctly. So it's a choice and something that you just need to review and determine how best you feel that your employees would enjoy the experience. The one thing before we leave here, I'd like to take a quick poll actually, and I'm going to launch this poll question. It's specifically about the use of the step enrollment, and we'll see if this will launch correctly. I haven't used this feature in a bit. Are you, Chandra, are you able to see that?
Yep, it's popped up.
Okay, so if any of you can see, it's a question asking you what view you're planning on using for this year's enrollment. Are you still using the classic view? Is that what you intend to use? Are you currently using the step enrollment? You're going to continue it, or are you considering it sort of for the first time, step enrollment, or is there just other? You use a third party. You're doing another approach to how you enroll the folks. And we'll give this another 15 seconds or so, and we'll see what the results say. But I'd love it if you guys could participate. I'll share the results immediately. So let's see what came in. Okay, so currently we've got, can you see those results or no?
I think we can see them in the chat.
You should be able to see them in the chat. Right now we're at 35% classic view, 31% currently using the step enrollment, 22% considering it, and 12 is other. That's pretty good. That's actually higher than I thought for step enrollment. I will say from my own personal experience working with clients, they are definitely trending towards using the step enrollment. Once they see it, once they understand it, it does give an enriched kind of experience, and I think they're enjoying it. So we're going to continue on. Thank you for participating there. So the next area is setting up that enrollment event, and it's fairly straightforward to set up the actual open enrollment, and where you're going to set it up, and then we'll move to the views. And in a second, I'll leave this area and actually go into the product itself and show you. One of the features that I definitely sort of little tricks of the trade is if you did last year's, and it's a good place to start. Don't start from scratch. Just simply go to the enrollment event from last year, select copy, and then rename, name it what it's going to be. In this case, 2025. Let's say open enrollment. Click submit, save, and it take all that you've built for last year, put it on this year just with new dates, and then you can go in and make adjustments from there. So that'll save you a step. You don't have to go back and forth and look at it. I find that's very helpful. Once you get into the actual, you've set up that open enrollment, then you're going to actually go into the enrollment rules. And the enrollment rules, you can see that it has these specific areas. There's the details, the settings, there's some email automations, and the benefits that are associated. But I think the important thing to know is that where you're going to see, especially with that step enrollment, is that enrollment settings. That's going to be really what they see, that view that they actually get to see. And I think from here, I'm going to jump into the product itself and show you. So one thing I would say, I am using the later enhanced toggle view of enrollment and benefits. So for some of you, it may look a little bit different. So for example, my open enrollment, you may be used to going over here to enrollment events and a setup off to the left-hand menu. Now the enrollment events where you actually create them in the new view is actually under plans. So where you have benefit plans, and here's all your plans and your rate tables, and then all the way to the right, you'll see enrollment events. So it has not only your life events, but your open enrollment events. So here I've already copied it from previous year and made the adjustments. And you can see that I go in, there's a little bit of detail here, which is just setting up your parameters of your window that you're setting up and when you want it effective. But you set up the rules, right? And so within the enrollment rules themselves, you can see that there are, again, some details as to how you want the look and feel setting up, meaning are there pre-selected benefits and whether or not there's certain documentations. But the main thing that I want to show you is this enrollment settings, and then I'll show you what it looks like from the employee view. So again, because I have that step enrollment, you're going to see a lot more areas to manipulate, if you will. And so again, you've got headers, you've got instruction areas that you can create, you have logos, links that you can add, additional links, videos that you can embed. I will caution you to, not caution you, but I'll definitely encourage you to make sure that you don't just, one thing I see from clients is they will have a video that they produced that's out there, and you need to make sure that you're using the embedded version, because if it's embedded, and you can see in this YouTube video, it is the embedded version, but because it keeps it within the iframe, so it keeps it the experience within the framework. It doesn't launch a brand new window for the video. So I mean, from a user perspective, experience, it's much more fluid if they can stay within the product. You can choose, for example, here you can allow, name changes, addresses. You can see this employee information if you want it even just visually to show up. But let's say you don't want it. You're like, no, we don't. For our open enrollment, we're not doing that. Fine. All you're doing is toggling it off. So it just removes that page. They won't go to it. Same thing with dependents and beneficiaries. Most do, and you do have the option to keep them, one, just to show them as a page before they get into their choices for benefits, but also they can choose whether they combine them, so dependents and beneficiaries together, whether it's separately, whether it's dependents only, beneficiaries only. So there's a lot of options here. You get into the actual settings, what they're going to show, and then when you get into the selection area, and then at the end, right, how they're going to review it, whether you want a checkbox or a signature, is there any sort of acknowledgement or affidavit that they need to sign, and then of course, any of the summary costs. So all of these settings all the way down, you can select and customize to meet your needs for the enrollment. Before I jump into the employee end of it, one quick spot I wanted to focus on, because another tip, if you will, that I see out there is folks will, let me just get to that one. Sure. Folks will, when they have premium changes, so right, you've got a dental plan, let's say, and in this example, and your carrier has given you new rates and you need to adjust what the employee pays and the employer pays. Make sure that you're going in. Now I'm going in specifically into the plan, so not into the actual enrollment itself, but specifically where you built the plan under contributions. You should be adding a line for that new date, new contribution with an actual date, starting 1/1/26 in this example. I do find some clients will go in and they'll wait literally on December 31st and they just update their current one. And that's really not a good practice. You really want to see every time there's a change, there should be a separate change, and you can put them in now ahead of time because they're not going to go effective until the future. It allows you to properly, set them up ahead of time. It's much better reporting. It's much cleaner. But every once in a while, I'll find a client I go in and I look at their contributions, and it's still from 2000, and I'm saying you've had to have an increase, and they're like, yeah, we just keep writing over the top of it. So just word to the wise, don't do that. And then we're going to get into the from a user experience perspective. So again, everything that we built on those enrollment roles, you'll see will now be reflective. And I'll actually go into the product in just a second, but you can see how the person's growing in. They're going to go through their beneficiary area in this example, and I have it separated out. And so for those of you who haven't used step enrollment, you can see it's a little more vivid. You've got more color that's showing up. Some of the areas that you'll see, for example, here's an icon that's health. So you can tailor those benefits. They can have specific icons to reflect that. You can have different ones depending on per plan. So you can have it very unique. I had one that was, they had two separate dental plans, right? A base plan and a premium plan. And we distinguish those by using icons to show kind of a visual representation. Oh, it's not, you don't have 8 plans to choose from because they had different options. You actually have 2 plans to choose from, and you could see that based on the difference by icon. Some of the other things that you'll see is that, and this is a new enhancement that came about this year, just in last April, I believe, is when it came out, is prior to this, so last year during open enrollment or during some of your life events, most folks didn't intuitively know, because this open wasn't there, that if you double clicked on this card, you could get additional information. But it wasn't intuitive to know, oh, I'm supposed to click on that card. So Infor did add the open button here that you can see in red at the bottom. And so you can click on that. It will give you additional plan information. It's definitely the area they go to correct certain things or to view specific things like which dependents on what, or the ability, maybe it's you selected employee plus child and you've got the wrong child on there. The system doesn't know that. You put on Bob, it should have been Mary, your daughter. And so then you can, when you open it, you can actually see that and make those associated changes. One of the things that you'll see here are, and this is standard in the plan, but there are different indicators or status tags depending on where they're at in their elections. If they've selected it, it's good, there's no issues, it's going to be green. You can see errors, it'll flag it differently. It'll be, red, it'll be warnings, that'll be yellow, or any messages. And then if there is an issue, so in this case, this was an error, it says, hey, you selected employee plus spouse, but you don't have a spouse, essentially is what it's saying. And then that's where you're going to click that resolve errors button on the bottom. And it's going to bring them right to where they can resolve it. It'll bring them right to the dependent area and look at that and within the plan and adjust it, which is really, really nice to have. So I'm going to switch into the plan itself. So again, this is a person that has already been enrolled, Tina Ahrens, and Tina's going through, making her selections. You can see this was the embedded video that I just quickly added that could be launched from within, again, that framework. Again, here's some name and addresses that we added. And for some, you might have controls on that. You just can't willy-nilly change it. Depends on some, they just want it visually there just as a confirmation, like name and address, and have a different instruction so they can actually, you can have it set that they can't make changes, but they can see it. And then maybe it's an instruction of, please contact HR or submit this form. Now here's the dependents and beneficiary section. The way that I have it set up is they can add it, they can remove it, they can update it, depends on how your internal processes are to do that. And then the next, once they get ready for the actual benefit election, this is where you can see it changes to the word enroll. And now we're actually going into the plan itself, enroll. In this open enrollment, I set up a very straightforward, simple plan. It just has health plan, dental plan, and a life plan. And here you can see that I have the icons for health, and then I used a different icon for the waived plan, just to visually make it stand out, if you will. We talked about this opening of the card. Now you can click on this open and it will bring in additional information, and you can actually specifically see, oh, yes, I do have an enrolled dependent, but from the outside, if you couldn't tell who it was, it's Zachary Ahrens is who's sitting here as the husband. And then you can see you do have some action items if you wish to change or create new or unenroll that dependent and re-enroll a new one, a different one. So again, from out here, you couldn't tell it was Zachary, but once you open it, you could tell it was Zachary. If I move to the next one, you can see here's the dental plan. And again, we talked about this warning, whereas instead of that, you can go to resolve errors. And here we can say, oh, there's no dependent enrolled. Can I enroll a dependent? Yes. and then I'm just selecting. And in this case, because I was on employee plus spouse as an option, it's only going to show me the spouse. If I was on family, it would obviously show me both spouse and children. So in this case, I could select Aaron and then submit, and that green, if you will, red will change to green. It's now selected. They're all enrolled. We look good. We move to the next, and you're going to get that visual green checkbox. So not only have you selected it, you've selected it correctly, meaning there's no issues with the plan. And then the life plan, you can see on this case, there weren't any beneficiaries selected. And we're going to talk about beneficiaries in my final segment, because I want to show there's a lot of variability and a lot of good flexibility on how you can set up your beneficiaries. But again, they can resolve the warning, go through, select their beneficiaries, and make that election. They get to the end. I'm not going to go all the way through it, but you get a sense of, here's the warnings. Now, warnings are soft, meaning I haven't forced the issue here. They can go ahead and select it. If I had beneficiary set as a requirement, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, it wouldn't be a warning. It would be an error saying you can't submit until you do select it. So again, up to you how you want it. Lots of flexibility here. At the end, they're going to end up doing affidavits, submit the enrollment. Depending on how you set up those emails, they can trigger emails to say thank you for your submission. You can have it attach a confirmation statement automatically, and it will come back in. So let's go back. There is one I'd like to focus on. It was an enhancement that was done in April, and it was specific to the spouse plans, and I want to make sure you're aware of it. Spouse plans didn't used to recalculate values. So specifically, I would see this in life plans for spouse. So if you had life insurance on your spouse, let's say, and you were changing it, so moving it from, I don't know, 50,000 to 100,000, it wasn't showing on the enrollment worksheet, it wasn't really regenerating or changing those premium structures. We saw that, especially if it was a percentage of like employee pay, or a percentage sometimes of what the employee elected in their supplemental life insurance. So they have made an enhancement there. So when I'm going through the enrollment and I'm electing my benefits, and I have spousal life, let's say, and I make a change to it, it will show that new premium on the fly. It'll automatically recalculate it, so that it's a truer depiction of what is going to be their premium. So I just wanted to call that out. That was a recent enhancement. So again, now let's go into the beneficiary changes specifically. And so in here, if you haven't been in this area in a while, I encourage you to look at it. In the past, it was fairly limited. Probably a year ago, you had to come up with some sort of creative way to allow beneficiary changes throughout the year. Most folks that I work with, their plans or carriers allow them to make beneficiary changes. They don't have to wait until an open enrollment or wait until a life event to make those changes. You can make them on the fly. Well, the system was limited, so they opened that up and did create what we would call an anytime benefits update. So you actually have to enable that, and it's a simple check mark, if you will, to enable it. One of the recent enhancements in April was it does include these on all life plans, including open enrollment. They've now allowed that too, so all of these changes can be applicable to an open enrollment setting, and I'm going to go into it in the product in just one more slide. One other thing I wanted to call out is for folks that are making these changes, especially if you're going to start limiting some things, like, for example, creating a requirement that they designate their beneficiary. Can you do these on the fly? Yes, you can, but these beneficiary changes are set at the plan level. So by updating them, you could cause errors or warnings for employees that are already enrolled, right? Midstream, if you will, in the middle of the year, outside of open enrollment, that you make this change, make it required. And now if they were clicking around and they went over in their benefits and they wanted to change because you've now enabled the anytime changes, they'll see an error, let's say, because maybe you made it required, like in this example, and it says the spouse is required. And it may cause some panic or concern by the employee as to why is there an error or what's going on. And so you just want to be cautious of that and make sure that you're communicating those changes to your employees, so that you don't get a rash of calls coming in to your HR desk. So if I was to switch back into the plan and I go into this. So in this case, I've actually brought up the benefit plan. So this is just a life plan that has been built. This is where the structure is. And down a ways, you'll see there's a beneficiary area. It's in the main section. So we're not getting into any of the rules or anything like that. And here again, first off, is it a plan that allows for beneficiaries? Life plan, yes. Dental plan, no, right? So now you'll see, if you haven't been in here in a while, you'll see the anytime. So if you select anytime, now that's going to allow folks to make those changes without needing to go through an enrollment session, whether that be an open enrollment or a life event or something like that. And then here are your options, and I'm quickly going to run through them. I know folks may be very familiar with this, but if you haven't looked at this in a while, these have been updated and changed. You didn't have near this flexibility in the past. So now you can actually choose whether you want primary and contingent, whether you want primary first, which means you can't elect a contingent until you've first elected the primary, and then also whether or not you want primary only. We don't even want to deal with the contingent. You can actually limit it to primary only. Again, do you want it warnings or required? So is it that soft edit saying, hey, we strongly recommend you put it in? That would be the warning. We're still going to allow you to enroll in the plan. Or is it no, it's required. You can't pass go. You don't get $200. It's just, it is what it is. You're not going to be able to enroll until you actually designate one. The next one is the spouse primary. So right now it's set at not required in this example. Could be a warning again, which is we strongly recommend is the way I would phrase it, almost, that the spouse, or required, which says, hey, your spouse has to be on your primary. You want your kids as secondary, great, but your spouse, obviously, if there is a spouse. So the system's smart enough to recognize if there's no spouse, it's not going to paint that person into a corner. And then amount or percent, and you can do both. You can do percent only, or you can do amount only. I'll share this. Most folks lean to percent only. And why that is especially if they have, let's say it's a basic employee life that's based on a multiple of their salary, and the salary changes, right? They get a raise. And now you had it as a dollar amount. So they had split it. It was $100,000 worth of coverage, and they gave 50,000 to one kid and 50,000 to the other kid. The problem is now they don't have 100,000. They have 110,000 the next year because they got an increase in pay. But yet the beneficiary selection was still split at 50,000, 50,000. And it doesn't know, oh, I need to increase that, let's say, to, 55,000 and 55,000. So I do tend to see people use the percents, especially in plans that are using that they know that the amount is going to increase. I want to call that out. Okay. And that is where we end with today's presentation. Very quick, very straightforward, but would love to have any questions you guys want to throw out there related to this, or even comments, your experiences.
Yeah, go ahead and drop any questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and we can read those off. I have one that's asking if we have already enrolled employees to the open enrollment event, can we still make changes to the event?
Yeah, that's a tricky one sometimes. So the general answer is yes, you can, but you do have to be cautious. So for example, let's say that you come forward and you're like, hey, our enrollment window, I don't know, we messed up and we put it in a date that's not advantageous to everybody completing. Our execs came back and said, we need to make that enrollment window go another 4 days. Can you go into the actual event and just simply change the enrollment window? Yep, you can. And it'll extend out and it'll give them more time to submit. Let's say that you want to change icons. Yep, you can change icons on the fly. You can change videos on the fly. You don't have to relaunch it. It literally will make the change on the fly. Edits to things like instructions, links that are bad, those types of things you absolutely can do on the fly and make the changes in those enrollment rules in those displays. But obviously, you need to be cautious that if you are changing the actual experience of what they can enroll in. Let's say you forgot one of the dental plans and you've already launched it and you've got 5 people that have already submitted. Obviously, you're going to want to reset that and actually go in and change it, meaning send it back to them, so to speak, meaning re-enroll them or reset them, those specific 5, because you want them to have the experience. Other questions, Chandra?
Yeah, we've got a couple more. Your open enrollment step process view looks different than mine. Is this because of a toggle?
So the open enrollment, was that from the user experience or from the setup? Doesn't say. Maybe it's setup. Okay, yes, it's because of the toggle. Well, it could be the toggle. Also, remember that if you're using step enrollment, you're going to look, if it's step enrollment and you're looking at something where you don't have step enrollment, it definitely looks different in that enrollment area. So I would start there. If you have set up, okay, you do have step enrollment, then it's definitely in the toggles, my guess would be.
All right. Let's see. Suggestions on how to handle beneficiary changes when they are required to be notarized. We currently do not show beneficiaries because we do not want changes to be made that are not notarized.
Okay. Without going deep dive, in part of the enhancements that Infor put out, there is now a notary, a separate area that you can validate the notarization. So I don't know if you know that. So what we'll have is we'll have folks still go through the process. They have communications, they still do it, but then they follow up with them and then they denote those there's a way to document whether or not they're notarized or not. I know that doesn't give you the perfect answer. But there is, I just want you to be aware that there is a separate section now or an additional area to document whether or not someone's notarized.
Thank you. So we've got one that says, very interested in implementing this. Where can we obtain more information? What is the difference between your version and the one we are using? Your version is much more appealing. And I can kind of speak to this. We can follow up with you to, set up time to talk about exactly what you're looking at. You can show us, we can walk through what it might take to help with any setup or maybe some just configuration changes, anything that you might need. So
sometimes it's just an enablement. It's like, oh, click on this, see how it looks different. Other clients, I'll be honest, they have a limited staff. They engage us once a year and say, hey, we need someone to co-pilot with us, and they'll engage us in a much stronger way. They'll say, hey, can we contract for 40 hours and get us all set up and get it all looking spiffy? And absolutely.
Yes, we hear from a lot of people looking for that help.
Yeah, and they just rely on us from year to year to year just because of what's going on, especially if they're doing major changes or they're doing step enrollment for the first time, things like that.
Let's see. What version was the fix for spouse premiums assigned to?
April of this year, if that was the question, meaning that new one where it recalcs, and there is a very short, if you're enrolled in Infor U, there is it's very short, might be 5 minutes long, that explains that and displays it.
Great. Okay. We switched from the filter choices based on dependents to step enrollment, and we received so many compliments on the look and how easy it was to use. So I think that's kind of just a good
Thank you.
good
Thank you for that
feedback.
feedback. Love to hear that. That's what they want to hear too, meaning they've and I will, you kind of heard me talk about that. Most of my folks definitely using step enrollment now, and most of them, it's not good or bad, I'm just saying most of them are not adding the additional filter for dependents. They're leaving that unchecked, if you will, just like you guys did.
This question's getting a lot of love here, so I'm going to jump to it. How can you keep people from adding duplicate dependents?
Ooh. Well, it should be stopping them. That's a deeper question. The Nikki's out there, I know too. If Nikki, you want to jump in at any time, feel free. The I think one, it should stop obviously if there's socials, but socials aren't always required. I'm not even sure if it does a check on those.
Yeah, that's what I was going to look that up. Maybe we can research that and follow up on that. Yeah.
Yeah, duplicate dependence. Actually, the audience may have better solutions than I on this one. You guys are always good. I always learn something.
Let's see, we've got someone who says we have an enhancement with Infor on duplicate dependence.
Good. If it's out there and you want to share it on this Q&A, or I mean, as you know, the more people vote and get after, and don't think that your request for enhancement goes unnoticed. I can't tell you how many times. First off, the vast majority of enhancements are driven by clients, and I have actually been successful not once but multiple times with getting with clients and bringing them forward, and yes, seeing those enhancements done that was originated from one of my clients. It just took a little time, but they got there.
All right, we've got another one here. What are the gotchas if we change our beneficiary from both to percent only?
Ooh. The gotcha is that you have a slew of them that are going to be in an amount, right? And so when you switch to percent only, and I haven't tested this, but it's very possible that it may kick out an error to them, meaning it'll show, hey, you don't have percent elected. So it's not going to like drop them or anything like that, but it's going to flag them. And so my recommendation is that when you go to turn that, you turn it, because remember, it's set at the benefit level, so it doesn't care whether it's not specific to a life event or enrollment event. It's set at that benefit level. So if I was going to do it, I would do it just before open enrollment window opens up, and then that way they're going to see that warning and hopefully get them to change it, to specifically a percent. But the gotcha is it's going to not like it. It's not going to fail per se, meaning they're still going to be enrolled, but it's going to immediately kick up a visual error.
All right, here's another one I can actually answer. How can we obtain a copy of this presentation? And yes, we post it to YouTube, and then we'll send the link out to everybody who's on today. That'll be in the next day or so. Open enrollment does not allow us to collect documents, but often during open enrollment, an employee will choose to add a spouse or a child. We have to manually track down the necessary documents. Is there a way to allow documents to be included?
The short answer is you'll love this answer. Kinda. So Infor's product there heavily relies on links. So if you can link to a document, yes, but documents themselves where they pull down, it's not out of the box that way. So usually what I'll see is you have to work to configure it. That's my experience. Others may have a different experience, but that's where we're at on that. Now yeah, because I know there's some documentation that you can set up or attach at a higher level, but not down at that lower level, I think, on the benefit area. I mean, on the dependent area when they add. So I don't have a great answer there. So this one says we collect documents during, oh, I'm seeing some of the pop-ups and I can't read them fast
enough. The next one up from there is if we are not seeing the beneficiary anytime checkbox on our life insurance plan, is there a toggle we need to turn on?
And I answered that question.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm throwing screenshots and answering things on the bottom. So
love it.
So that one there is a checkbox that has to be selected under beneficiaries on the plan on the main tab. So yes, there is a toggle, but it should show up after you select it.
Right. If you don't have beneficiaries even turned on that plan, you're right. It doesn't show it down below. If that's, I think, what I'm tracking, what you're saying.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you, Nikki. We have another one. You had recommended setting a new plan to start on 1/1 of the year in lieu of changing date on existing plan. What if deductions are due a month prior to benefit start date?
What if deductions are due a month prior to the start date? It's fine. Let me stop. Yeah, I was speaking specifically of adding a line on the premium on the plan, the contribution on the plan. So not speaking about open enrollment. Yes, I create another open enrollment event, but that's not to do with changes to premiums per se. So the changes to a premium, my strong recommendation was that in that plan itself, so forget open enrollment, just the plan where you build the plan under contributions, to create a new line with a future date of when those premiums are going to take effect.
Okay, and we're jumping around a little bit, but someone mentioned that they collect documents during OE by using life events, and then they approve the documents, which allows the employee to continue with enrollment. So just some feedback within the chat there.
Okay, so okay. I mean, that spurs a bunch of questions from me, but we're not having really an open dialogue here, but okay. So that would start you down a path. I've just got more questions than answers right now in my head. Is that specific to, birth of a child, or, let's say they're 2 and they're adding them for the first time, and, those types of things. But they may have a specific event, I guess, to add a dependent, I guess is what they created, like at any point to add a dependent, and that's where they're requiring the documentation. And then after they do that, they can go into maybe open enrollment because now the dependent is available. And I'm making huge assumptions there as to what that person was saying.
Okay, jump over here. Is it better to create a new event each year, or can we reuse a previous event by just updating the dates if all plans set up are remaining the same? And this is a 2-parter. Also, do we need to create new contribution rules each year, even if there are no rate changes?
Okay, this one I understand. My recommendation is that you create a new event each year. I know it looks messy on the screen, but I think it's better to keep those separate, because you get into, within that event are all of your enrollments and where you submitted and finalization, and all of that is crafted in there. So in terms of, do you create a new open enrollment event? Yes, I recommend that. Do you need to create new contribution rules? Now remember, this contribution rules are set at the plan level if there are no rate changes. No, you do not. It just continues on.
Great. Okay. We actually already answered that one. Do you have any tips or recommendations for monitoring open enrollment submissions?
I do. And I can quickly, we've got a little bit of time, which is great the way this kind of dialed up. If I go back into the actual event, and again, my screen may look a little different than yours, but you now can, in your open enrollment, so we'll get into 2025, let's say, and you can go into where all the enrollments are. You can see this person started, but remember, when you launch this, you're going to have, tons that are sitting here, right? You're going to have hundreds in here, and they're going to be at different enrollment statuses. And so my recommendation is always to look at those, and you're going to be able to see whether they even started. Like, as you know, Tina, we went in and actually started, whether it's in draft, they haven't even touched it yet. So they're enrolled, but they haven't really touched it yet. Whether they've submitted it and waiting for you to finalize it, whether it's finalized. So my recommendation is actually, when you have literally hundreds here, you can sort. So you'll just use this sort. And in this case, okay, we're going to sort by started, and I'll have all the ones that started. And then literally, I'm going to select all. And remember, there's hundreds here, and they all have checkboxes now. And I'm just going to right click, send email, and I can create an email template for those that are specific to started, saying, hey, maybe the message is, we've noticed our records indicate you've started but haven't completed. Please remember, the end of open enrollment is blah, 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 all elections, whatever you want to say. And then other ones, you could tailor a different email template, which are in draft, so they've yet to start. And so it's like, please remember, our end records indicate you haven't started at all. You kind of admonish them a bit, and maybe your direction is, hey, we really need to, we need you. Maybe it's not passive. Maybe you want them in active enrollment. For some of mine, it's not even passive. Like, you need to re-enroll if you wish to have benefits next year. Please if you have any questions, that type of thing. So you can tailor them, and very quickly. You don't have to individually send them. You can actually group them and mass enroll, and then you're not nagging, if you will, the ones that were timely and already got them in and are already submitted. You're not sending those emails to them. That doesn't take the place of other things that you're doing in terms of whether it's postcards, whether it's your internet, doing banners and other things that you're promoting. I think was there another little checkbox about, there is this progress, which does show how you can monitor them. So how many are in draft? When you hover over them, it'll give you the count. But it doesn't, it's only going to give you the count. So yeah, you can see this, and it's a quick little tab, and it's nice to see, oh, wow, we've already gotten, we've only been open 2 days for open enrollment. We've already got, here's all the 400 that are sitting in draft, and we've already got 200 that started, which is great. But if you want to see exactly where they're at, then you're going to go over to that all enrollment and really see by person where they're at.
Okay, and I think that kind of relates to that open enrollment progress graph. We have two, and do we have to have two enrollment events? One for EES and one for retirees?
The hard so it would depend on your situation. I know folks that they actually are able, depending on how their benefits set up and those groups are set up, and how your eligibility rules are set up, that they have one giant open enrollment, and the system's smart enough to, if you will, hide benefits for those that are available and surface other benefits that they are available, depending on who you are. I'm a retiree thing. So my answer is no, but it depends on how your system is configured and built. It's really how it's built. Definitely have clients go both ways.
Okay, thanks. Is there a way to link the order of event completion? For example, making sure that a new hire completes their new hire enrollment before they complete annual enrollment.
The pause is me thinking.
Yeah,
This-
that's
yeah,
a common question.
I love that. You're not the first one to ask that question. I don't know a trick out of the box. Let's put it that way.
No.
Because I know there's that little cart horse thing going on. I get that, which is we need them to enroll, and and they're going to be effective November 1 or December 1, just for that 1 month. But we also then need them to turn around and enroll for open enrollment for January 1. But I'd love to see it if whatever they elected for December 1 would show up on their current benefits for what their open enrollment is for January 1. I get all that back and forth, but I don't have an out of the box great answer. Smells like an enhancement to me.
Is there a way to add dependents to a dependent care FSA plan? We often have employees select this program in error, thinking they are electing the healthcare FSA for dependents.
I guess I'm a little confused by the question. Nikki, did you track the question better than me?
Is there a way to add dependents to a dependent care FSA plan? And I was just trying to go there and see if we have one set up that way. I don't, yeah, I'm not sure on that one. Please select the program in error, thinking they're electing healthcare FSA for dependents. Yeah, I'm gonna have to research that one. Not 100% sure.
Okay, we've got time for a couple more. How would we run a report to see employees' dependents if they add them during open enrollment so we can get them confirmed?
I'm sorry, I was looking. I was trying to find the answer. What was the question?
You got sidetracked. How would we run a report to see employees' dependents if they add them during open enrollment so we can get them confirmed?
All I can think of is
going
a report by date, right?
Right. So, I mean, my quick response would be create a list report that has the dependents on there, and then you should be able to see, you should be able to pull the dating. But that's my quick answer. I don't think there's a.
Yep.
I'm not sure on a deliver. I mean, you could start with, there may be a delivered report that shows dependents, but you're going to have to bring in, and that's a starting point to create a list report if you've ever built those to add, and then you got to bring in that date, because I don't think out of the box it shows the date. It's not going to show the date where it was added.
All right.
Yeah.
We've got one last minute here. I am trying to keep up with the questions. We've had lots of them come in. If we didn't get your question answered, drop it in the chat and we can respond via email. I think if anything, all of this Q&A shows, benefits are tricky. So if you need any help, or, like today, it may be something we have to come back to you with some options for, but we're happy to do that. So just reach out. We've got Christopher's information right there at the bottom of the screen, but you can also follow up with whoever sends out your link. So it will be one of 4 different folks, and they can help connect you with Christopher or Nikki or whoever the most appropriate person is that can help.
Thank you so much for attending, gang. You guys were great with your questions. Clearly we hit a nerve, but that's a good thing. We're all in this together kind of thing. We get it. It's everybody's different, everybody's unique, and yet, there's a lot of twists and turns to benefits.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Christopher. Thank you for everyone that joined, and we will be in touch soon with the replay link. Thanks.